Hello, I'm Loki Knighton. Obviously, it says my name on the screen. And you don't know me from horsing around or Bojack Horseman because I am not part of either. What I am is a furry that is part of Luke and Loke, a toys and gaming YouTube channel. But I'm a massive fan of Bojack Horseman, and this is a fresh take straight off of binge watching all of season 5. Because yes, Bojack Horseman is an amazing show. I love the animation. I love the art style. The voice acting is glorious, and the story is so grounded and visceral, and it's glorious. So obvious, like, spoilers, just absolute spoilers, obviously, for season 5 of Bojack Horseman, and almost all of the seasons, essentially, of Bojack Horseman, because you're going to need to be up to date if you essentially want to hear about what's going on, because yes, it's a linear progression of story, as it is, as a lot of Netflix originals are. But yes, essentially this is going to be a bit of a ramble on my part, and I hope you can get any modicum of sense out of it. So yeah, kicking off straight away, this will be a more overarching analysis of the season 5 of Bojack Horseman. We may go into a episode by episode analysis at a later date, but for the first couple of initial episodes, season 5 was a little bit more stripped down, a little bit simpler, more just setting up the season, as is the case for the existing seasons, 2 till 4. That was observed as well in episodes 1 and 2. So what we essentially observed in episode 1 was that we now know that Hollyhock is at college. We've got Princess Carolyn, who is now adopting. Bojack is fresh on the scene with Filbert, and he's sleeping with his co-star, who is also essentially his partner. And we have Flip McVicker with a slight god complex, just exercising his power over the actors. So that does start a little bit of a dichotomy, a little bit to and fro between Flip and Bojack, which is interesting as the season progresses, but we'll get to that. Episode 2, we then continue the storyline of Diane's divorce with Peanut Butter, with that having been confirmed in the first episode of this season, and essentially her escape to sort of like Vietnam, and sort of trying to find herself. But as is the case with Bojack Horseman, characters don't really find themselves. They don't really understand and develop properly without outside influence. So, as you would expect, with Diane going off to Vietnam and then coming back, she's not learned all that much, which is, again, a bit of a shame that characters can't really learn much by themselves, but when they're interacting with one another, that's when we see their growth, which is at the same time a very awesome thing that I love it about the show. But we do have quite a few darker, slightly darker sort of like quotes in the second episode. One of my favourite little quotes being Peanut Butter when he goes, "Erica, what are you doing here with a child-sized coffin?" Always love the Erica quotes, cannot get enough of them. Episode 3 is really where it pumps up into 12th gear, and like the third episode is where it gets very interesting. So essentially, we have Todd getting into a caper with his axolotl girlfriend, who is also Ace, and not exactly having control over that caper, essentially visiting an axolotl household where sexual promiscuity is a lot more present, which is obviously going to throw a spanner in the works for an asexual relationship. So we have more of a development of Todd's side of things, which I love to see, and it's carried over throughout the season as well, where you do have a lot more Todd, because Todd is amazing, and I love him. He is such a cute little guy that just always gets into scrapes and capers. But this is where we start to see the blending of the lives of the character of Bojack Horseman and Filbert. This is where we start to see the seeds of just slowly moving over into a blending of those characters. With this episode also being one of my favourite for a background gag, which is essentially a little Fox News logo, which just has a little fox, and it's just, it's adorable. I love the background gags. There's so many that, again, we're not going to be able to get into all of them, essentially, for this little hot take review thing, which I don't know even what this review thing is. I just want to spiel on about how much I love this show, essentially, and this is an excuse to do so. Episode 4 is then where we have the sort of like a Me Too movement and a more a view of sort of like the forgiveness to male co-stars that has gone awry as of late. So we have a problem where we've got essentially an actor who is known for doing multiple anti-Semitic things, being an extremely assaulting individual who has been on record for sort of like abusing his daughter and all these things, but then still getting cast. So episode 4 is more of an acknowledgement and a take on what is going on with actors, with male actors in Hollywood, and how you keep getting them being employed regardless of all of the bad actions that they employ. So episode 4 is one of the more hard-hitting episodes, in my opinion, and again has some great puns. It's like there's even an award for receiving forgiveness, a forgivey that absolutely cracked me up, and I love that. It was great, and yeah, it's just having a look at that and seeing things such as Bojack Horseman being a proud feminist and trying to like push through a feminist agenda with rhetoric, but misplaced rhetoric that Diane essentially gives him. He's like, yeah, I sort of understand this. He doesn't understand it, not at all. It's just great to see how Bojack puts his little Bojack spin on a feminist rhetoric, but fails completely and just doesn't at all encapsulate what it means to be a true feminist. But yeah, and it even covers a lot of the things that the show has sort of like endured. So it goes on about how problems in Hollywood are normalized due to pop culture normalization. And you get normalization of good things, which is good. We need normalization of good things. But then we have the normalization of the bad as well, with Vance Wagner, the problematic actor that we did talk about previously, then going forward to say, I'm a feminist also, and essentially just then getting a ton of praise and forgiveness for essentially saying, I'm a feminist, and then that's it, he doesn't act on it. So having that PR has essentially given these actors a space to then be able to be re-employed after their misgivings, which, yeah, it's not, certainly not the best of things. But this is where you may be thinking, oh wow, Bojack is screwed then, because after all of these allegations coming out, then surely we're going to get straight into what happened in New Mexico with Charlotte's daughter. No, that's not where the series goes at all. Because yeah, I was a bit disappointed. It's one of the few things I didn't enjoy about the season. I'm a bit disappointed about where it did take the New Mexico side of things. But again, we'll get into that because the episode 5 does talk about that. Episode 5 talks about New Mexico and the boat fiasco, with it having been revealed to Diane in the previous episode, in episode 4. And yes, it is essentially having that boat fiasco more present and just threading it through the series. We then have more of a background for Princess Carolyn, with her growing up in what seems to be like a Southern Carolinian state. I can't really remember exactly what state it was, because yes, I have a bad memory. I've got little sleep. I've just watched a good 5 hours of TV, so my brain's a little bit they're all over the place. But what we essentially see is how PC endures her first miscarriage and what it means for her. So this is one of the more emotional episodes where we get to learn a bit more about PC and her mother, and seeing how her mother wasn't necessarily the best, again, as is the case for a lot of characters in Bojack Horseman, where we don't really see what Peanut Butter's mother is like. Bojack's mother is obviously horrendous from what we have observed. Diane's family is very sort of like neurotic and just sort of like out there. They don't give her much attention. And yeah, we just have that continuation with Princess Carolyn's mother not being all too good as a mother. It's very saddening indeed. That was one of the episodes that really did hit me with Princess Carolyn's first miscarriage. Episode 6. Now, episode 6 was the highlight for me. Episode 6 was my favourite because it is essentially 24 minutes of Bojack Horseman delivering a eulogy, and that's glorious. So yeah, essentially Bojack's mother has died, and he's giving a eulogy at a funeral, and it's gripping TV because nothing radical happens. It's just Bojack standing on a podium, giving a speech about his mother, and then bouncing off of his mother. So, in terms of like jokes, rhetoric, all that sort of stuff. So, not literally bouncing on the coffin. But yeah, Bojack's mother has died, and Bojack essentially spills onwards for 24 minutes with a comedy act. And he goes on to say how his mother's had a full life to lead, and how the last words that she said to him were, "I see you," and essentially it's a sparkling dialogue which encapsulates what the entire series is about, what the entire premise of Bojack Horseman is about, and I love it. It is glorious. It is the best dialogue, the best episode of any series in Bojack Horseman, and I love it. You get to know a bit more about his father as well, how his father died due to a pistols at dawn sort of like challenge, just a duel. Who dies in a duel? And even then, you've got the sheer farce of his father dying, not from a gunshot, but from tripping over on a tree branch and bashing his head on the tree when he's just essentially trying to say, "Oh, hey, dude, that is challenging me. What did he think about my book?" Because yeah, he challenges him over a book. It's mad, and I'm being rambly because I love this episode. Episode 6 is 23 minutes of sparkling dialogue, and it's great. Absolutely love it. And the whole episode builds up to one big final joke, which is like, he does an open casket, he opens the casket, and he goes, "Wait, is this funeral parlour B?" It makes it crack up. I love it. He's in the wrong funeral, giving the eulogy to the wrong room, without even realising it, because he's Bojack Horseman. It's just great. Absolutely amazing. Great. I can't express how happy I am with that episode. Season 7 is where it charges up the aesthetic slightly differently. So essentially, because of sort of like doctor-patient confidentiality with a what's the word? I'm losing the words. I'm all hopped up on lack of sleep and muffins. A psychiatrist, that's the word. Like a psychiatrist patient confidentiality. All of the characters are slightly changed. So we have Bobo the zebra instead of Bojack Horseman, and because the series is awesome, it even changes up the intro to have Bojack as a zebra, which is not something that I realised I wanted to see until now, because he looks great as a zebra. It looks amazing. But yeah, essentially we then find out a lot more about the relationship between Todd and Princess Carolyn, because they have been living together for a good year now, and they have a disagreement over essentially some stringed cheese, of all things. But when it comes to Bojack, it's essentially him seeking help through a psychiatrist without actively seeking help through a psychiatrist. He keeps going to her as a friend. So that's always interesting. And then one of the key highlights for me of season 7, I wish I want more seasons, of episode 7 is where chocolate hazelnut spreads, aka peanut butter, finds out that his mother is dead after being told that she's gone to a farm for many years. And then later on in the episode realises that his father is dead after being told that he's been on a farm for many years. Again, just the pure naivety of peanut butter or chocolate hazelnut spread, because yes, he's a chocolate Labrador in the 7th episode. It never not astounds me. Words. It's funny, it's great, it's charming, and it's adorable. But yeah, we essentially have Bojack just driving all over the place. He has to confront his problems with the USS New Mexico, which is essentially what Diane has done to try and get Bojack to confront what happened in Mexico by putting it into the script of Filbert. So this is where we start to get a bit more tension. It's been a little bit slow up till episode 7, but it really, really starts to tense up, which is awesome. We then have episode 8, which is Peanut Butter's Booze, which is 4-way Peanut Butter Halloween Party Cuts, which is essentially showing the course of a 25-year tradition of Halloween parties, where Peanut Butter has taken three of his ex-wives, Diane and the other two. I'm really bad with remembering that. There's a lot of characters in Bojack Horseman, and although I love it, I don't have the memory for it. And then we have his new girlfriend who was introduced, which is Pickles. We have Pickles, which is a little pug that Peanut Butter is now dating, and she's adorable and bubbly and excitable. And we essentially get to see lots of throwbacks again. It's like, oh, this year is 1993. Oh, this year is 2002. Oh, this year is 2004. All that sort of stuff. And what I love about this episode is how it tells you more history without shoving it in your face. So, essentially, right at the end of all of the madness that unfolds, we essentially find out how Todd found his way to Bojack's house. And it's essentially just, he was at the Halloween party in 2009, and Bojack said he could stay for as long as he wanted, so of course he did. Of course, Todd stuck around for as long as he heckin' wanted, and it's just, it's glorious. It's glorious. I love Bojack Horseman. And if you think, oh, this guy's stuttering and squeaking all over the place, I'm reading some very haphazard notes that I threw together while I was watching the show. So I'm trying to remember, oh, this was a thing, and then that was a thing. But yes, episode 9, this is where it gets even more confusing, because Bojack is starting to warp reality with Filbert. So, as one of his quotes goes, I don't know what's real anymore, I don't even care. So yeah, it's getting darker, it's getting more worrisome. But on the lighter side of things, Todd now has an app which is called All About That Ace, which is sort of like an ace dating app which has been set up by his ex-partner. And yes, Hollyhock is now back in. We have Hollyhock back in the Bojack Horseman household, but she freaks out slightly because she's like, oh my god, I was poisoned by your mother here. And he's like, but my mother's dead. And then she's like, oh, can I have pizza? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's have pizza. And then once they've eaten the pizza, Bojack's obviously like taking pills because he's Bojack and he has a drug problem, because of course he does. And he's essentially using an excuse, which is, oh, I had a stunt problem, because in one of the earlier episodes he had a stunt problem. Essentially, he went off a 5-story building, I believe it was, on a motorbike and had a slipped disc. So she thinks that Bojack is poisoning her with the amphetamines again, so she destroys them. But Bojack, obviously, well, he needs the amphetamines for his back. So this whole episode, episode 9, is essentially just Bojack and Hollyhock going all over LA, just trying to find some amphetamines. So we get to see Doctor Who again, which is awesome. Find out Doctor Who is a paediatrician, but he's come clean. He's turned a new leaf since just a lot has happened. We've had death and destruction on the side of Bojack taking so many drugs, and yeah, it's not good. It's not good with that, because then we've got Bojack just going all over the place to some more shadier spaces with another little cameo from our all-time favourite, Officer Meow Meow Fuzzy Face. I do love me some Officer Meow Meow. So that again, great episode, with the ending being especially punchy, where Bojack is struggling with his amphetamine addiction, and having promised Hollyhock that he won't take medicine except without actually having a need for medicine, he then intentionally gets himself into a car accident, then being prescribed that medication again. But because he's Bojack, of course he's going to overdose on it again. So episodes 10, 11 and 12 are seeing some of that kickback from the injury, the self-imposed injury that he has given himself. Because yes, Bojack is now getting into a deeper relationship with Gina. He's having a more self-reflective relationship, and essentially what it comes down to is Filbert being premiered and everyone going to the premiere, hence this deepening of the relationship between Bojack and Gina, due to them essentially wanting to be public. So what essentially happens is we start to see some of that kickback from Bojack having been overdosing on medicine for a good 2 months now. And Diane is fed up with it. She's seeing that he's essentially rationalising his own problems. As she says, dumb assholes rationalise their own problems. And this is where I feel that the show is becoming self-reflective, especially in episodes 10, 11 and 12, where we have a lot of the speech that is being stated through Bojack and Diane is what I feel is a lot of the creators going, yes, we have a fan base that may have problems, and they see the show and they go, yes, I can relate to this. I don't have a problem because, you know, like, I can sort it out. There's a character on TV which has problems, but he can sort it out. It's fine. It's like the whole Rick and Morty thing. People see Rick and he's like, oh, I'm like him. It's fine. We don't have problems because this guy doesn't have problems. Whereas Diane is going, no, you're shitty. Dumb assholes rationalise their own problems. You are responsible for your own problems, not just the show. Don't justify your shitty attitude because of a show. And this is even reflected in some of Diane's dialogue. Don't justify your shitty demeanour because of the show. And I love it. I absolutely love that line. It's perfect. It's great. I love it. And we get more into Serilyn's overdose and how bad Bojack feels about that. And like Bojack and Diane are essentially just bouncing off of one another, with Diane lambasting Bojack due to him saying, oh, like, I have to live through all this. I am the one that is getting the problems. I am suffering. I am the biggest victim. And Diane is having none of that, which again is great writing on behalf of the show. And I know I'm rambling. But I just have to say what I think about the show after having seen it, because I love it. I love it so much. We then have episode 11, which is set out as a Filbert episode, because yes, we have that distortion of reality between what Bojack thinks is real and what Filbert is. So essentially we've got that melding of the characters between Bojack and between Filbert. And we just see Bojack spiralling into becoming one with Filbert, essentially. It isn't as heavy-hitting an episode. I will give it that. The emotional side of things isn't as hardy as Downer Ending or some of the other episodes that are the episode 11s. But we do observe Mr. Peanut Butter with a little bit more malevolence, with him having cheated on his new girlfriend Pickles with Diane, his ex-wife at this point. And yeah, it's interesting to see where that thread of malevolence is going with Peanut Butter, because he's always a good guy. Always a good guy, but you can see that underlying malevolence, and it's not fun. It's not fun to see, but it is fun to see at the same time, because we know Peanut Butter isn't the good guy, but he always acts as a good guy, and it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see, and yeah, it's great. We get to see the F-bomb of the series in episode 11, where having essentially become one with Filbert, he thinks that he is filming an episode essentially, and as part of the script, he's choking Gina, his co-star, but he doesn't stop due to his drug-fueled rage. So he just keeps choking her until they intervene, and what it comes down to, one of the last scenes of that episode is Gina going, what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's perfectly delivered. I love the voice acting there, and it's a good use of the F-bomb. But again, I suppose watching it, you get a greater emotion in the moment, but it's not as emotionally scarring, I want to say, as some of the other episode 11s, especially of season 4. Season 4 episode 11 was heartbreaking. That was a very hard episode to watch. And then we see episode 12, where production is shut down due to the fallout of just the whole choking incident. Todd is now at the very sort of head of the advertising part of the What Time Is It Right Now, and yeah, it's just about the descent of everything backwards. So we've got Todd going back down to not having a job anymore due to his sex robot that he got into a CEO position, essentially becoming part of a sex scandal. It's a whole thing. I'll probably cover the whole Todd story in another little ramble, because it's a great little B story just throughout the whole season. Just seeing the antics that Todd gets to always lightens my heart. I absolutely love it. And we see Bojack spinning out again. He's got more of sort of like a forgetful nature due to not having as high dosage of drugs. So yeah, Bojack's a little bit more spun out in this episode. And then of course we have sort of like that fallout. So we have an interview with PC trying to just get them back on track, with PC having tried to adopt throughout the whole season, and then actually being given the opportunity to adopt, which obviously conflicts with her sort of like need to try and get the show up and running again. A great background gag, best background gag of the season being a disgruntled hare drinking at a bar, with that referring to the turtle and the hare. I just love it, like that the hare's in a little running outfit. It's great. And then we've just got that cover up of the Bojack Horseman assault, where he assaulted Gina, his co-star, and just sort of them trying to get through it without being friendly, essentially, but not letting the news networks know that was the problem, because it was all filmed and the footage is leaked. And it doesn't necessarily look too good for Bojack, because he's physically strangling someone, which you don't want, obviously, for your public image. So, got a few problems there. And yeah, essentially it's just that devolvement of Todd not having a job again, PC adopting a little child and not having a name for her, with PC jokingly referring to the child as a PC project in development. And yeah, we don't have as bad as an emotional hit as any of the previous finales, but we do have Diane essentially driving Bojack to a clinic where he's going to be sobering up, and then driving off into the sunset as Bojack goes to get sober. And that is a quick summation of Season 5, Bojack Horseman. I probably missed a ton of stuff. I'm very tired, I'm very sleepy. Recording, rendering, editing, all that stuff has to also get thrown in. So I'll probably do a breakdown episode by episode at a later date. But this is a first take of what I felt was good, and a few bits that were bad about Bojack Horseman Season 5. In summary, too long didn't watch, or too long didn't listen. Essentially, it's a great season. Absolutely love the season. Everything was expertly put together. The only flaw that I have with it is it wasn't as emotionally heavy-hitting as some of the other seasons. Not every season can be as emotionally hitting as Season 4. That's still my personal favourite in terms of the emotional sort of like onslaught that you get. Trying to think of the word. Yeah, it is an emotional onslaught in Season 4. But yeah, Season 5 is more grounded. It is more of a, these are problems that the characters have, these are problems that the characters are facing. Here's some more background behind these characters. I love getting the background and history behind characters as well. The rise and fall of Todd having a stable job. And just, yeah, absolutely love it. Bojack's mother dying, not really getting the fallout of that, because Bojack is just continuing on with his destructive tendencies until episode 12. But yes, Season 6, oh, please, like, I want another season. And it'll be interesting to see how a sober Bojack is able to deal with all of the problems that his not-so-sober self have provided him. But when all is said and done, he's more horse than a man, and he's more man than a horse, so he's going to have to deal with that. Unfortunately, it does come to the shill bit of this little analysis rant thing. If you did enjoy this analysis rant thing, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If not, that's perfectly fine as well. Those sorts of things need to go and sober the heck up, much like Bojack Horseman is going to at the end of this little season. But yes, thank you once again for watching our videos and rants for what they are. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and good night.